Isn't it strange, almost poetic, that from all the endless emptiness of time before you existed, from all the silent centuries where you were nothing at all, somehow here you are, breathing, thinking, alive. And yet even in our age of logic and technology, we still act as though death is some kind of mistake, a tragedy, a forbidden subject, as if it's something unnatural, something to be avoided at all costs. But the truth is, death may be the most natural thing that has ever existed. The real issue is this: we've been taught, conditioned from the very beginning, to believe that dying is a failure, that life is a race and we must keep running forever. But who told us we were meant to survive endlessly? Where did we get the idea that we were supposed to last forever? It's in forgetting death that we start fearing it. What has always fascinated me isn't just the act of dying. It's the idea of slipping into sleep and never waking up. Not darkness, not silence, but the complete absence of anything at all. And somehow, that nothingness isn't terrifying, because it's the same nothing we all came from. Before you took your first breath, there was no you. Yet now, you're here. That alone is a miracle. So maybe, just maybe, death isn't the end. Maybe it's simply the other side of the mirror. And if you look close enough, you might discover that what we call the end is actually a doorway to understanding what life really is. You see, there's nothing inherently wrong with getting sick, or even dying. No one ever signed a contract guaranteeing you'd live forever. You're not meant to be a permanent fixture in the universe. Nothing in nature is. Everything, from the tallest mountains to the brightest stars, eventually fades. Leaves fall, seasons change, even galaxies die. And yet, the dance of life never stops. In fact, it continues because things end. That's the secret. If nothing ever ended, there would be no reason to begin again. Why do trees bear fruit? Why do we have children? Because nature doesn't demand that we hold on forever. It whispers, pass it on. It teaches us that life is meant to flow, not freeze. That new forms are far more vibrant than holding on to the same one forever. Every child is a renewal of the world. Through their eyes, even the cracks in the floor seem magical, because they haven't yet been trained to reduce everything to utility or value or profit. But once we stop seeing magic, once everything becomes just a tool for survival, something in us fades. Our role in nature ends. And nature, having no more use for us, gently lets us go. That isn't a failure, that's the rhythm of life. When one form dies, another takes its place. The falling leaf feeds the soil, the rotting branch becomes rich earth. From death, life blooms again. In our modern world, especially in Western, industrial cultures, we've learned to treat death like it's a disease. Like someone made a horrible mistake. So we hide it. We push it out of sight. We pretend it doesn't exist. Hospitals become prisons for the dying. White sheets, long corridors, whispered lies. Don't tell her. Don't upset him. As if pretending it isn't happening would somehow make it go away. But death doesn't disappear just because we refuse to speak its name. So many people die in silence, drugged, unaware, robbed of the sacred moment that death truly is. Because when we fully face it, when we meet it without fear or denial, death can awaken something powerful within us. I've known people in the middle of war who heard the whistle of a bomb coming straight for them, and in that instant, they surrendered. No panic, no bargaining, just clarity. And when that moment passed and they lived, they were never the same again. Because for one brief second, they saw everything clearly, not with their eyes, but with their soul. Death, then, isn't a monster to run from. It's a portal, an invitation, not a tragic ending, but a complete letting go. one that leads not to loss, but to something extraordinary. Freedom. But we've missed this because we've made death indecent, forbidden, hidden behind walls. And in doing so, we've stripped it of its meaning. The real terror of death is not the end of the body. It's the collapse of the ego. You see, the ego, that image you carry of yourself, the name, the job, the history, the role you play, has been trained from the start to cling, to grasp, to survive, and death says no. Suddenly, there's nothing more to control, nothing more to manage. And the ego panics. But here's the paradox. If you can surrender before you die, if you can let go while you still live, something miraculous happens. In that surrender, the illusion cracks open. The frantic machine of control goes silent. And in that silence, clarity. You see that nothing was ever truly under control, that there was nothing to fear, that every breath, every sound, every moment has always been exactly as it was meant to be. Not a single speck of dust is out of place in the whole cosmos. And when you realize that, the anxiety disappears, the separation fades, the endless striving was just a dream. In that light, death isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's the moment when the curtain falls and the actor steps off stage. Not into darkness, but into truth. But we must face it with open eyes. We must let it teach us. And if we do, we may find ourselves saying, I wouldn't have missed that moment for anything. Most people think of death as some endless blackness, as if being dead is like being buried alive, an eternal night with no escape. But that's not it at all. You only know darkness because you've known light. You know silence because you've heard sound. But if no one is there to sense the contrast, there isn't even darkness. There's just nothing. And that might sound terrifying. But ask yourself, when you sleep deeply without dreams, are you afraid? Do you worry where your mind goes? Number, you just aren't there. There's no one watching, no one worrying, just stillness. And if you were to sleep that deeply, forever, it wouldn't feel like anything at all. No time, no space, no fear, just the same nothing that existed before you were born. And remember, before you were born, you weren't sad, you weren't afraid, you didn't miss anything, you simply weren't. And yet, from that nothing, you happened. So if it happened once, why not again? Death isn't what we think. It's not an abyss. It's not the end of the story. It's simply the place where experience ceases and possibility begins. Strangely enough, the absence we call death isn't a tragedy. At least, not in the way we think. It's only tragic through the eyes of the ego, that part of us desperately clinging to continuity, to identity, to the illusion of permanence. But in the vast unfolding of the universe, to stop is not to end. It is simply to rest. And in resting, life begins again. If, when we die, we return to the same stillness from which we first came, the same emptiness before birth, then what exactly is there to fear? You've already been there once. Before memory, before your name, before the idea of you ever took shape. There was nothing, no sound, no thought, no form. And then, suddenly, the stars spun, the earth formed, your parents met, and you arrived, blinking up at the ceiling from a cradle. So if the beginning came so gently, why should the ending be any different? You see, death and birth are not opposites. They are two expressions of the same rhythm, one movement of the same eternal breath. Death isn't a solid wall. It's the other side of the mirror. We don't remember being born, and we won't remember having died, but the universe remembers. It always does. It breathes through you and me again and again in endless shapes and faces. So if it happened once, if from that great silence you happened, Why shouldn't it happen again? Not you as the personality, not John or Sarah or the ego's name tag, but the awareness, the spark, the eye that looks out through the form. That mystery, that miracle of being. You didn't choose to be born, and you won't choose to die, but the pattern continues. The flower wilts, the seed falls, the form fades, but life, true life, doesn't end. It simply changes its costume, and the dance goes on. Death is not the opposite of life. Birth is. Life is the pulse between them, the flowing, moving, breathing energy in between. Imagine something unusual, that the universe, this vast cosmos, wakes up. Just as trees bear fruit or stars emit light, the universe gives rise to people. It becomes aware of itself through us. Now, usually when we say I, we mean our personality, our story, our habits, our history. But that's just a convenience, a symbol, a name tag we stick on something much deeper. Your ego, that picture you carry of yourself, is not really you. No more than a photograph is the living person it tries to capture. It doesn't grow, it doesn't breathe, it doesn't wonder. You are not your thoughts about yourself. You're not just a mind replaying memories. You are what lives, what flows, what does, without even knowing how. You beat your heart, you grow your hair, you breathe, you circulate blood, you repair your skin, but you have no idea how you do it. It just happens, just like clouds form, just like rivers move. So if you follow this all the way back, you start to see you are not just this body. This body is not separate. It rose out of the universe just like a wave rises from the sea. For a moment, it dances in the light, then melts back again. You are not separate from life. You are life in motion. You are the universe looking at itself through human eyes for a while. And each time a baby is born, it is the cosmos blinking again, not remembering, because memory is bound to the form, but being, the pure act of awareness itself, timeless, beyond a story. So when this body dissolves, when the name fades and the memories vanish, what is lost is only the mask, the form, the costume, but the seeing, the awareness, the presence that looked through your eyes, that was never yours to begin with. It was the universe, wearing your face for a little while. And when that chapter ends, when the story closes, what follows is not silence in the sorrowful sense. It's not punishment, not some cold void. It is rest, like the hush after a song, like the space between thoughts. You return not to emptiness, but to origin. And that origin was never nothing. It was everything, the wind, the stars, the pulse of the great unknown. You might say, but I will be no more. But ask yourself, were you ever what you thought? Were you ever just a name, a memory, a job title? Or were you a ripple, temporary, beautiful, on the surface of something vast? The wave disappears, yes, but the ocean remains. So when this form falls away, when the individual passes, the awareness itself, the I, doesn't die. It continues, not as the same person, but as the same pulse, the same music, with a new verse, new names, new faces, new wonders. And each one will feel just as intimate, just as vivid as the last. That's why death is not the end. It's a return, a pause, the start of something unseen. To die, then, is not failure. It's a release, a homecoming. And when that moment arrives, if we are willing to face it with presence, with trust, with open eye, we may just smile and whisper, "Ah, so that's what this was all for."